Hello, what is up YouTube? My name is G3 Iron, and today we are taking a look at the balance patch notes. Not the patch notes themselves, but the balance patch notes, what they call in grinding gear land development manifestos. So we're going to jump right in. I have not read through these. We are 3 days, 21 hours, 12 minutes, and 57 seconds away. So let's dive right in to hear some of the philosophy and some of the thought process of grinding gear games as they are and have been developing synthesis. So they say, and they start off as such. Tomorrow we're releasing the full patch notes for Path of Exile synthesis. In the meantime, we'd like to talk some of the major balance changes we've planned for the expansion and what our intentions are. The balance changes mostly focus on hand casting spells, though many of these changes do affect other systems in the game. Spells. Here we go. For a number of leagues, the majority of builds that use spells have used proxies like totems, traps, or mines to cast skills for them. There has also been a focus on skills that do their work automatically over a long duration. For this expansion, we focused on putting power back in the hands of casters, rewarding players who cast skills directly. In addition to a number of new support gems, we've made changes to almost every damage spell in the game. We've reviewed and adjusted the base damage and effectiveness of almost every primary damage spell. We've also included some traps, mines, and totems in these adjustments. These changes have focused on separately balancing low and high levels. Many skills have only required power increases at low or high levels, depending on where they naturally excel. We've also reviewed vol skills and skills from items, a small number of spells that we consider too powerful for their ease of use, like Brands, Winter Orb, and Blade Vortex have had their damage lowered. We'll be revealing the full list of changes in the patch notes. Mana costs of many skills have been adjusted to make the mana cost per cast time of skills much more consistent. Most skills that were adjusted have had their costs lowered. There are a few exceptions to the cast time equivalent mana cost rule. Channeled skills are slightly cheaper, while curses are more expensive than other skills of equivalent cast time. We will include a list of specific changes in the patch notes. All right, cool. So more, hey, this is our general thought process, and specifics are going to be in patch notes. Many spells that had cast times higher than 0.75 seconds have been lowered, and their damage adjusted to match. These skills were often too unwieldy to cast yourself, and their high effective hit damage made them very powerful with traps, mines, and triggering effects. Here are a few examples of cast times after these changes. Discharge has gone from 0.75 seconds from it is at 0.75 seconds from 1 second, okay. Glacial Cascade, 0.7 seconds from 0.8 seconds. Arc, 0.7 seconds from 0.8 seconds. And Ice Nova, 0.7 seconds from 0.8 seconds. Some skills that had lower areas of effect than other skills without a good reason have either had their skill areas increased or now gain additional radius as their gems level. Cool. Combined with new options for increasing spell area of effect, this should help these skills be more enjoyable to use. You'll find new sources of increased area of effect on the passive tree for casters. Note that we'll be giving similar bonuses to attack skills in the future, just not in 3.6. Those of you that are wondering about melee stuff, all those changes are coming in 3.7. We've made a few other changes to various spells, like lowering the cooldown of Convocation, having Spark be able to re-hit a target it has pierced after a shorter delay, and having Unearthed projectiles fly much faster. These are buffs. Arc also has a lower chain distance now, so it won't bounce between distant packs of enemies. Aha! So we've already got some information right there. Those of you who are hoping to level and start off the game with Enki's Arc Witch, it's probably still going to be good, but just realize this is already a hint of a nerf right away, just in terms of the number of chains and the distance that it takes for those chains to take effect. Support gems. A number of support gems that have fallen behind others in power and utility are receiving some numerical and mechanical adjustments. Chain support, fork support, spell cascade, and innervate have had values improved. Arcane Surge support now has a damage multiplier at higher gem levels. Onslaught support and the Summon Phantasm support now have effects on hitting rare and unique enemies. Curses. Powerful bosses, especially the Elder and Shaper, previously had significantly less effect on curses on them, to stop temporal chains and enfeeble from trivializing their encounters. We've now lowered this curse effect reduction to let damage curses provide more worthwhile bonuses against bosses. Temporal chains and enfeeble now have a separate value of damage reduction and slow for normal and magic enemies compared to rare and unique enemies, with rare and unique enemies having about half as much the effect. The accuracy reduction on enfeeble has also been reduced. Okay, so group cursing and cursing on bosses is going to be really good in 3.6. Okay, fun. I'm okay with this, since Occultist was one of the things I'm going to be playing at some point in Hardcore Synthesis. Just not sure when, but at some point I'm going to be playing a cursey dude, a cursey lady. Energy Shield Leech. We've added multiple sources of Energy Shield Leech to the game, both on a new support gem and for spells on passive skills. Energy Shield has a lower cap on maximum restored per second than Life Leech, 10% of maximum Energy Shield per second. But the dedicated Energy Shield Leech passives will let you increase this number. Ghost Reaver now doubles your maximum Energy Shield per second, in addition to turning all Life Leech into Energy Shield Leech and lowering your shield recharge rate. This makes it good for pure Energy Shield casters, as well as letting attacks have easy Energy Shield Leech access. All right, boys, it's an Energy Shield League. Here we go. Leech Length nerf. Previously, there were no upper limit on how much an individual leech effect could restore. This meant that a very high damage hit with enough leech could last for minutes, if not longer, if you had an effect letting your leech remain on full life. Now there is a limit of 10% restored per leech effect, so each individual leech effect can't last more than 5 seconds. For the Ascendant Slayer passive skill, this is 5% lower. Okay, so there's at least a reason to play Slayer, just straight up Duelist Slayer, as opposed to playing Ascendant Slayer. That's interesting. Passive tree. We've made a large number of changes to the passive tree to provide more diverse source of power and other interesting mechanics to spellcasters. Energy Shield Leech again. We've added a number of sources of Energy Shield Leech. 4 spells on the passive tree, both on specialized clusters that also boost your damage in a few different ways, and as a part of the Fire, Cold, and Lightning Heart notables. The shadow area of the tree also has a small amount of new evasion and energy shield path. Interesting. Caster weapon passives. We've added and adjusted a number of passive trees clustered that affect staves, dual wielding, and shields for casters. These provide powerful bonuses to spells that were previously only found on very generic skills, including a lot of cast speed for casters that are dual wielding, a lot of damage and defenses for those using shields, and bonuses to the area of effects for staves. We've also made various additions and improvements to some underutilized passives that affect spellcasters. Okay, so could we see staves coming back into the meta? And by back, I mean for the first time ever? I mean, okay, there was a point in time in the history of Path of Exile where some people played staves, but for the most part, staffs have been way down on the totem pole, on the pecking order for desirable weapons. Elemental Damage Wheel. The Elemental Damage Wheel of passives to the left of the Templar's starting area now has fewer elemental damage skills and a single powerful elemental notable that combines some of the power of the 2 previous elemental notables. It now includes 2 new notables that work very well with the new spells that convert physical damage to fire or lightning. Okay, so it's almost like that top left of the tree is like conversion, the conversion side of the tree, and the top middle of the tree is just like, near the witch, is just like, hey, if you just wanted to go straight damage in one particular elemental source, that's where you can get it. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, both Templar and witches can both access that part of the tree very, very easily. And even Assassin can get over there pretty quickly. It's basically Pathfinder and Duelist that they're keeping away from that. Okay, Shadow starting passives. We've adjusted connections to the tree on the Shadow's starting area to be more consistent with other classes, and changed the defensive passives and projectile passives to have a simpler, widely useful set of bonuses. A notable passive providing evasion, energy shield, and energy shield leech takes some of the old bonuses and places them to the right side of the tree, shifting the mana path so it is now parallel to the jewel node and now granting a small amount of increased mana regen. Interesting. I like it. So shadow starting area getting a buff. Channeling passives. We've added 2 new passive tree clusters that provide damage bonuses for channeled skills as well as some defensive properties while channeling, like stun avoidance and physical damage reduction. The Trickster's Ghost Dance and Escape Artist notables have been reworked significantly, with the goal of providing a unique and very powerful reward for specializing in evasion and energy shield. Ghost Dance now creates a Ghost Shroud every second, up to the maximum of 3. After you're hit, a Ghost Shroud is consumed. Restoring energy shield based on your evasion rating, Ghost Dance and Escape Artist now have other bonuses based on your Ghost Shrouds. Okay, interesting. So Trickster got a change, not necessarily a buff, but a change. We've also added Frenzy and Power Charge generation while channeling to the Swift Killer notable. Okay, never mind. To let a channeling Trickster generate charges during tough encounters. Okay, that's just a buff. That's good. Inquisitor, we've reworked the consecration-based notables of Sanctify and Pious Path to greatly improve reliability of consecrated ground for the Inquisitor, instead of just giving powerful bonuses when you manage to be on consecrated ground. Sanctify no longer creates consecrated ground when hit or on kill, and instead will always create consecrated ground around you while you're stationary. Interesting. So whenever you're purely stationary, you're just going to have consecrated ground. That's cool. Pious Path now lets the effect of consecrated ground linger for 4 seconds after you, allies, or enemies would no longer be affected by the ground. Other effects have also been changed or improved. Interesting. These changes work well with a change to all consecrated ground that causes hits against enemies in it to have 100% increased critical strike chance. Holy moly, other changes. So, critical strike chance. Previously, an effect that would critically hit was capped at 5% minimum critical strike chance and 95% maximum critical strike chance. We've set both of these caps to 0 and 100%. Okay, so you can just straight up always be hitting now. Effects that give enemies an additional chance to be critically hit have all been changed to instead increase the chance of critical hits against them, or give additional critical chance before modifiers, as if the attacker had critical bonuses against the target rather than an additional chance added on top. Okay, I like that. That's cool. Non-chaos as extra chaos damage on weapons. The interaction of non-chaos damage with hits as extra chaos damage stat and multiple damage conversions made this stat far more powerful for very specific setups than a single stat should be. Really? Interesting. Stat sticks died for this stuff. We've lowered the value of this stat on the combined craftable spell damage and non-chaos damage with hits as extra chaos damage modifiers on weapons. All right, so all of that stuff just went legacy, and if you have any of that crafted stuff, hang on to it because its price value just shot way up. The Veiled mod that only grants this modifier has now been split into 4 versions: Fire, Cold, Lightning, and Physical. These modifiers are now available as a mod on many caster weapons above level 60 at a higher value, making it a powerful effect to find when creating the perfect element-specific caster weapon. Existing items will not be affected by this change. We'll be looking at other sources of the stat, like unique items and the Trickster's Harness the Void notable in the future. Alright, +1 to Maximum Totem's Veiled mod. This modifier is no longer available as a veiled craftable modifier. Instead, it now appears as a mod on Shaper shields. The modifier was too powerful to be able to easily apply to an already strong rare shield. All right, so the power creep went a little too far. We're going to reel it back in a little bit. So now you've got to get it earlier in the process of crafting an item. So in other words, it didn't go away. It just means you can't slam it on there at the end of the item. You've got to actually search for it as you are crafting and building your shield. Unique nerfs. We've made some adjustments to a few unique items that were problematic. Details will be in the patch notes tomorrow. Damage immunity. We've made a few changes to prevent total immunity to specific damage types, as these could be used to completely trivialize some encounters. Player maximum resistances can now never go above 90%. We all just read that, right? I'm going to read that again. Player maximum resistances now can never go above 90%. There's just a max resistance cap now. Any maximum resistance you have above this value will have no effect. This is especially important as Synthesis introduces other sources of maximum resistances. Okay, so Synthesis is adding more sources of maximum resistances, so it's easier to get maximum resistances. So now you just want more people to have access to above 75% resistance, which that's fine. That's great. More people playing the game, more people have access to stuff. Makes sense. However, putting a hard cap? What? Okay, 90% is the number. Okay. Vol impurity auras now provide less damage taken of their element and have less aura effect per level. The Gluttony of Elements skill now also provides curse immunity to prevent interactions with temporal chains, letting it last far too long. Technically, this is a buff. Okay, so Gluttony of Elements now also provides curse immunity. So in other words, you can't temp chains yourself for a bunch of added duration of different effects, like Headhunter, for instance, or Gluttony of Elements. Okay, there are plenty of other changes on our hit list in the future. Attacks need the same level of attention, if not more, that spells are getting in 3.6, as well as changes to Abyss Jewels and physical weapon damage. But we'll be spacing these out over 3.7 and beyond to make sure that they get the time and attention they deserve. We look forward to sharing the full patch notes for Path of Exile Synthesis with you tomorrow. Bex, Head Community Manager. Okay. First off, I just lost my voice. But first off, I guess my voice volume just got capped at 90% too. Maybe that's what happened. Rest in peace, maximum resistances. Like, holy moly, so much of Path of Exile, at least of my gameplay history with Path of Exile, has been like, okay, can we push as far as we can above 90? Like, above 75, really, above the cap. But as far as you can. I guess in theory, right, there's only a couple different setups that really can push you above 90 anyway. But regardless, like, I'm thinking about Righteous Fire builds, for instance. That's just the first thing that comes to mind, right? Like, thinking of a Righteous Fire build where you want to stack as much fire resistance as possible. Like, if you used to get to, like, let's say 92 or 93 fire resistance, just so that way, again, your survivability was maximized because you're doing fire damage to yourself, and you really want to maximize that particular resistance. And you're going to sacrifice other sorts of defensive layers for that. GGG saying, hey, 90% is the cap. It's the top. You can't go any higher. Deal with it. I wonder if this means that Lore Weave is actually less appealing now. Does this mean the Lore Weave market just tanked? Didn't change? Its value went up? I don't know. I'm going to have to do some chewing on this. Anyway, leave us a comment down below. There's a whole bunch of stuff here to react to. There's channeling changes. There's going to be changes, of course, tomorrow on the stat tree. All of the numbers. We're going to get all the numeric values for all of these different spells tomorrow. So that's all that we get to react to tomorrow. Trickster changes, starter changes. It sounds like the passive tree is getting a pretty major tweaking with a lot of different places getting it. Different Veil mods that are now out of the game, which we've had discussions of over the last couple of weeks, talking about just power creep and how the game is continuing to add more power levels to the player, which overall I still think is good because GGG continues to add difficult content. So that's great. And now this, like, maximum resistances can't go above 90. And hey, we don't want you guys to be immune anymore. So I wonder what this will do for, like, the groups that have really pushed Delve really, really hard. Like, I really wonder what this will mean for some of the groups and for some of the individuals that have pushed Delve really, really hard, taking advantage of some of these effects that have made them either immortal or immune, whether that's permanently or semi-permanently. I just wonder what that effect will do. If that means that those sorts of Delve numbers are now unachievable. Yeah, there's a lot to chew on here, a lot to chew on. So thanks, as always, for watching. Give us a like, a subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified for more videos just like this one, because pretty much every day from here on out, we're doing synthesis stuff, whether it's patch notes, it's build guides, or it's content and mechanics for newbies and economics. All that stuff is coming right around the corner. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope as you are migrating your stashes today and reading over this this development manifesto, man, I think I'm going to title this thing Rest in Peace Elemental Resistances. They just keep hitting them. Last patch was flasks, and now this. Somebody's going to come up with something to break it. Somebody will figure it out. Somebody, not me. One of you will figure out a way to break this system. And in 3.7 and 3.8, we'll get even more nerfs to elemental resistances. Anyway, I hope that today is the day you find a Mirror of Calandra as you are reading the dev manifesto and weeping over elemental resistances no longer being able to go 90%.